Hello, bonjour, здравствуйте, assalamu alaikum, guten tag, ni hao, konnichiwa, hola. A big hello and welcome to the Knitters Party podcast. My name is Megan. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Meg311yo. I do have a Ravelry group, but it's not so active at the moment, unfortunately, but you can search the Ravelry groups page for the Knitters Party podcast and find me there. I have a very exciting episode today. In addition to my normal finished objects and works in progress, I actually did end up finding a proper yarn store, and so I've got some acquisitions. I've also got some vacation photos of my parents and I sort of at the pyramids and in Sharm el-Sheikh and some different places. That's at the very end of the video. It's just a 5.5-minute little compilation of vacation photos, if that interests you. If not, that's totally fine. You're here for the knitting. I understand, completely understand. So let's get right into it, shall we? I will start with my finished objects. So last time I had showed you my Emiliana shawl that I had knit for my sister. It's a black and white mosaic knitting where you essentially, you work with 2 colors of yarn, but only 1 color on any single row. And so it's not exactly color work. It won't be like Fair Isle or like other color work techniques, not intarsia or anything. Mosaic knitting is much, much easier than that. And so anyway, I sent that shawl back to Michigan with my parents when they came to visit, and my sister received it and she sent me a picture and she loves it. And so I'm going to insert that picture here. So you can see that she actually does like the shawl and it looks really great on her, and those are totally her colors, black and white. They weren't my colors, which is why I didn't keep it for myself, even though I am notoriously a very selfish knitter. But alas, just wanted to show you that one picture, and I was really excited that my sister actually liked the shawl, so I wanted to feature a little bit of her here. So in addition to that, I also have another finished object, something you've seen week after week if you're a returning viewer on my podcast. But I finally finished my cobble socks by Ruth Brash. So I had finished one the last time I had podcasted, and I finished the other one, blocked them out in my now go-to favorite solution of fabric softener and some cold water, and they just blossomed and bloomed right out, which was really great because I was not sure if they were going to be too tight, but they did sort of stretch out exactly how I needed them, and now they actually fit really perfectly. So I mentioned before, let me show you the fun pattern on here. Cobble Socks by Ruth Brash. This was my 2nd, 3rd, 4th attempt at knitting them. Not sure how many times I've cast these on, but I was finally happy to take them off the needles and wear them, actually. I mentioned before that the first time I knit these socks, which was in my green and purple yarn, because there are some slipped stitches on the front, the back was longer than the front by the time it came to the heel. And so for my second round, I decided to do like a modified eye of partridge stitch so that there would be equal numbers of slipped stitches on the front and on the back. And that worked out really well. I also hope they're going to be quite sturdy, because Lord knows I'm not going to be darning these socks if they ever get a hole in them. Mainly because I just hate the yarn. But about the yarn, this is Ancient Arts Fiber BFL Garden, 100% BFL, superwash, in the colorway Garden Gnomes and Pink Flamingos. I like them more now that they're off the needles. They were not my favorite yarn. It was not my favorite yarn to knit with. The socks are great, but the yarn itself was just not fantastic. But I put these on and I've been wearing them around the house like religiously since they came off my needles. And so they're a little bit dirty. They're super stretched out. I haven't washed them yet. But yesterday I decided we just needed a couple quick things from the market, which is a 5-minute walk from our house. So I decided to just wear these, because I was wearing them anyway, wear these in my shoes around to the market. And it made me remember why I don't wear hand knit socks in shoes. I don't know what it is, but like the stitches on the bottom of my foot, I feel them, and it's like I rub up against all the stitches and I can feel that the socks are not going to last very long if I wear them in shoes. I personally am really hard sort of at the ball of my foot where the toe meets my foot, I suppose. I think that's the ball at your foot. So I was feeling it and it was uncomfortable to walk around with. I'm worried that they're going to be not very sturdy, even though with the Eye of Partridge stitch, it actually like creates sort of the, when you slip a stitch, you carry your yarn in the back. And so I actually feel like it was supposed to make sort of an extra little layer of yarn on the bottom of the foot, but I still felt like I was wearing on them really hard to the point where it might not last very long. And so you can see here the toe goes into this modified Eye of Partridge stitch there. And the toe is just standard, you know, stockinette on the front, reverse stockinette on the inside, which you're looking at. And then the modified Eye of Partridge, you've got these extra bands of yarn going through it. I'm thinking it's going to be more sturdy, but I felt the exact opposite when I was wearing them in my shoes. Lesson learned, I don't wear socks. I don't wear hand knit socks in my shoes, and I do not wear them out of the house, and I do not wear them around because I just started liking sock knitting, and I don't want to end up knitting all these socks that I wear in shoes and then they're uncomfortable or I have holes in them. I don't go back and re-knit or like darn my socks or anything. If they get a hole, I'm just going to throw them away. I've got 2 pairs of socks at home in storage in San Diego. I've got 2 pairs of socks, both with holes in them. I think I've just been waiting to throw them away. I don't even have the original yarn that they were knit with because I knit them years ago. I'm not gonna fix them. I'm not gonna sew them up. I'm not gonna patch them up with different contrasting yarn. I really should just throw them away, but I think I don't have the heart to do so. That said, I'm really happy to have these off the needles, and I've been wearing them around like crazy. I do like them a lot better now that they're off the needles. I did these toe up with just a standard slip stitch, short row heel. And I've never had a short row heel fit me really well before. And so I was a little bit nervous doing these toe up, but I prefer toe up socks so that I can use as much of the yarn as possible. But when I was doing the slip stitch heel, I did my standard heel according to the pattern, no big deal. But I actually, in the little like corner where you finally start knitting around again, I ended up picking up 3 stitches on either side of my heel. I wonder where you can see it best. This side has a giant hole, so I'm not going to show you that side. But right here, I picked up 3 extra stitches along each side of my heel, and that gives me 6 extra inches around the widest part of your foot, which is sort of the heel to the top of your foot, whatever you want to call it. And actually it fits really, really well. So I think I'm going to start doing this from now on. It's nice because the pattern is sort of like on a 3 to 6 stitch like repeat. And so it was easy to just pick up 3 stitches here, 3 stitches there, and keep going in pattern. I knew that I wasn't going to be flubbing up my counts or anything. And it gave me a little bit of extra room around the cuff, or around the calf of my leg. Really a nice way to sort of add some extra length in the widest part of your foot. So if you like knitting toe-up socks, but you haven't gotten the right fit, I recommend, give it a try. Pick up a couple of extra stitches, whatever is going to help you in pattern. So if it's a 2-stitch repeat or a 4-stitch repeat, sort of pick these up as you go. You can always decrease if you need to start with 3 because of a giant hole, and then decrease to 2 or whatever. But I found that it does give me that extra room that I need so that my socks don't feel like they're going to break right at the widest point. So I was really happy with that decision. I will definitely be doing this in the future. And so those are my cobble socks by Ruth Resch. All right, my first work in progress is also something you saw last week, living here in my beautiful project bag that I picked up here in Cairo from Kushi's. I don't know, they're a local Cairo-based thing. I doubt you'll be able to find them online, unfortunately. But I have a hoe and a work in progress. I'm a sock knitter, guys. I'm a sock knitter. What can I say? So these socks are, it's a variation of a free pattern on Ravelry called the Simple Skip Socks. What is they called? The Simple Skip Socks by Adrienne Koo. Sorry, looking at my notes here. But that's that nice stitch pattern in the middle, sort of these rows here. This is the skip stitch, which is really fun. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, and the pattern doesn't have enough of these little skips, and I really like them. I think they're super fun. They're easy to do. You can do it without looking, and so it's like perfect TV knitting. but I sort of made my own pattern to go along with this. So this is the Simple Skip Sock by Adrienne Koo. Again, variation thereof. And this is knit in a yarn I picked up in Windsor, Ontario, Canada at a super cute little yarn store. But the yarn is called Artful Bell is their base. It's like a fingering base. And this is the colorway Orchid. I believe this is 75-25, so 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon, but it feels so soft. I am hoping that it opens up a little bit more when I wash it, because right now it is quite small. I did add a couple little ribs because I like my socks to be really tight against the arch, especially of my foot. But I also thought that I was going to be knitting this for my aunt, who had been hinting not so subtly that she wanted something knit from me. And I hate being such a selfish knitter, but that's who I am. And the second I saw these working up and like the subtle stripes in the colorway a little bit, I was like, I have to have these for myself. And so, sorry, Aunt Lynn, maybe I'll make you something another time, but like, this yarn is way too beautiful to be given away. Sorry, oh my god, I don't feel bad. I really don't feel bad knitting for myself. I feel bad when I start a project and I'm like, yes, this is clearly for this one person. I know I'm gonna give it to them, they're gonna love it. And then I switch my focus halfway through and I'm like, nope, these are for me because they're too nice, they're too pretty. I put in a lot of work for that. So, about the pattern, I used 56 stitches, which is smaller than my usual number of like 60 to 62 for my own foot. But given that it's, you know, I have like a rib here, like I said, to be tight against the foot, I'm hoping it'll open up a little bit because, you know, when you do like 1x1 ribbing, it actually gets really wide when you stretch it out, because going from knitting to purling and back, you don't really tighten those stitches the way you would if it were just stockinette. And so it can actually give you a little extra stretch if you're interested or if you're looking for that. And that's what I need. So I have tried this on. It is a bit snug. I'm hoping that when I wash it and block it, it'll be good. So I absolutely love it. 56 stitches, and then as mentioned before, you can, I think, see it pretty well on this side. I did a slip stitch, a standard, what is this called, this heel? You go toe up, you short rows. Geez, I did a short row heel. And I did, again, I picked up 3 extra stitches right in that gusset. I hope it's coming up well, or I hope you can see it. This now gives me a total stitch count of 56 and 6 is 62 stitches, which is pretty much perfect for me, especially for the calf of my leg and sort of like the, you know, where I want to get a little extra width, I guess. And so I just kept the 2x2 rib on the sides here, but I picked up, I picked up these 3 extra stitches. You can see them because they're good in white right here. I picked up these 3 extra stitches and just kept knitting in pattern. So around the calf, I've got the skip pattern on the front and on the back. And I think it is quite beautiful. I didn't exactly write down all my notes on Ravelry. I tried, but I have like a little stitch marker here to show where I added the heel. This stitch marker was just originally to show me which was the front and the back, but I think that may have been more or less where I was last time you saw it. So there's a hoe. Cool. Finished a hoe. I also then cast on yesterday for the second sock, and I just absolutely love this yarn. This colorway is stunning. Absolutely gorgeous. And I've got my little toe. I love the side with the stockinette. Like, you can really see the colors just pop on that side. It's also bright, like the neon orange and pinks and purples and greens and little tiny specks of yellow where the green hasn't saturated so much. I just love it. So I'm having a lot of fun knitting these socks. Hopefully they will be a finished object by the next time I podcast. That's my goal. And then after that, I'm definitely going to be casting on these socks for myself. I sent home my Hermione's Everyday Socks for my friend Lindsay, and I have enough to knit myself another pair of socks. So I'm gonna do this. I don't know if I'm gonna do a contrasting toe and cuff. I'm thinking I can do a contrasting heel, just for S's and G's, and also to get a little bit more length on the cuff. I want to use up as much of this yarn as possible because it is gorgeous. This is my Malabrigo sock yarn. I think it's just the Malabrigo sock in the colorway Wales Road. So, ooh, gee, let me put it on my like filthy floor. Oh boy, I'll pick that up later. That's it. So this is my first work in progress. My Simple Skip Socks by Adrienne Koo. Going back in here. All right, my next work in progress is also something you've seen, but last time I showed this to you, it wasn't very easy to see what was going on, whereas now I think it's a lot easier because I've made some progress, if my yarn will cooperate. This is my Galaxia lace top by Vera Sanin. And this is knit in Cascade Ultra Pima. It's a Pima cotton, 100% cotton in the colorway Wine. I'm on my third skein so far. I have 4 left, but I actually think I'm only gonna need about 2 more skeins because this is a t-shirt. It's not a long sleeve cardigan or anything. And I definitely think I'm gonna have some extra, which is awesome because I can always use 2 skeins of DK weight yarn to make a shawl or to make, you know, something fun. I haven't tried it on. I think I'm not going to until I finish knitting it. Oh, fly by the seat of my pants. But I definitely think it's going to be fitting. The nice thing about cotton is that if it's small, you stretch it out. If it's big, you just throw it in the dryer and it will shrink right up. And so I feel like I am going to have no problems getting the right size for this. I also am like knitting this and I see it, I sort of put it up to me and it fits. Like it definitely looks like it fits. It doesn't look like it's going to be too small. I definitely want a bit of positive ease. I actually want this to be a shirt that I will wear. So that's my goal. Last time I showed you, I was almost done with the top section of lace. And I had mentioned that a sample I had seen on Ravelry had this little diamond in the middle and I couldn't quite figure out how to do it. And so I read a couple of your comments on my last video. Thank you for those. And basically I just like looked at the pattern and I looked at her picture especially. And I was like, how many yarn overs are there? And I was like, there's only 2 more yarn overs. Like, how is that even possible? And so basically all you do is 1 more row, but it looks like there's 2 more rows because it sort of goes back in pattern. I just think it was absolutely stunning. So you're looking at the front of my work. The back of it is all this lace. Oh, it's so beautiful. What a brilliant lace pattern this is. I hope it's showing up. Let me see if I can sort of put it against the red background here and stretch it out. It is a really brilliant lace pattern. It's unique. It's geometric without being overly complicated. It's only a 16-row lace pattern that you then repeat 5-6 times, however many are for your size. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. The more I think about this, the more I don't know if it's actually Egypt appropriate. But considering I live in San Diego or Michigan or who knows where is our next stop after all this, I think it'll be appropriate no matter where we go. And so that's my idea. I'm having a lot of fun knitting on this. You can see I've separated for the sleeves and I've knit, actually that's quite a bit of work. I've knit maybe 2.5 inches on the, of the body. I am adding a few extra stitches at the bust, so I'm still sort of increasing in the front here so that I get a little bit more room for the bust. And I'm hoping that I can just decrease those back down, no problemo. I've knit enough now that I know how to sort of make modifications for my body, and I definitely need a couple of extra stitches for the bust. I'm wondering, now that this may or may not be for Egypt, I'm wondering if I want to do sort of darts under the bust or if I want to just decrease on the sides. Darts under the bust are probably a better fit, but they're really noticeable. And I don't want this to sort of be like harlot red, you know, like I don't want to wear like a super harlot red color and have like darts under the bust. So I gotta just think about it. I'm still a couple inches away from needing to do any darting, if any. And so I'll probably end up just doing it on the side so that you can't tell where I'm decreasing or you can't see it right underneath the bust there. But I actually would probably have to try it on at that point, and I am way too lazy to put these on a longer cord so that I can like put it over my body. I'll have to do it eventually because I've put a lot of work into this pattern and I actually really love it, so I want it to fit well. My last work in progress is actually crochet, and I'm really happy about this because I've been wanting to crochet something, but I haven't found the right thing and I didn't feel like I had the right yarn and all this, and so when I sort of thought about this crochet, I was really happy to realize that I have the perfect yarn for it. So I'll tell you a bit about the yarn first. The yarn here is Juniper Moon Farms in their Harriet Fine Base, which is 100% baby alpaca, non-superwash. This is in the colorway Pampa Sunrise, and it is an acid yellow-green. It is exactly as you see. It's like mossy, so bright. It's stunning. I love this colorway. When I first tried to knit with this, I was trying to knit a shawl. I don't even remember what it was at this point. It was several months back. And the yarn has somewhat of a halo on it because it's alpaca, I suppose, and it's only a 2-ply. And so when I was knitting this, there was 0 stitch definition. You just could not see what was going on. I was thinking about adding beads to it, and there was no stitch definition. And that kills me because, like, I spend all this time knitting. I want to see my stitches. I want to see all the work that was going into it. And I think the reason that knitting is so beautiful is that you can see every individual stitch. But this yarn wasn't working for that. And so I put it away and I've been sort of looking at it because I love the color and I would totally buy it again. I decided that ooh, that's the pretty side. I'm going to show you that side. I decided to crochet with it. And so here is my crochet. This is the Fortunes Shawlette by Tamara, and it is a super cool crochet. This was a pattern that I have favorited on Ravelry forever ago. It actually has a Moogly tutorial on YouTube, and so and I needed the tutorial. I'm not adept enough at crochet to just look at a pattern and be like, oh, but of course, and like just continue on from there, no big deal. I very much need a little bit of help, especially with sort of complex stitch patterns. The reason I like this shawlette so much is because the lace is open enough and it's big enough that, you know, you can still see the stitch definition, you can still see sort of these fun geometrical shapes, and you don't need to worry about the yarn being having a little bit of a halo or not, because clearly my yarn does. I actually am making very fast progress on this. This whole shawl so far is maybe 2 hours of work. And of course, you can see I started down here with the tail. When you start these triangle shawls of any kind, knitting, crochet, whatever, it goes by so fast. So in maybe a half hour of crochet, I had already crocheted up to like here, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be done with this by the time I podcast. Yes, I love crocheting so fast. And then you get a couple more rows in and you're like, oh boy, every row is now taking easily 30 minutes. It's about 1 minute per little square, maybe less than a minute per square. But each one of these, you know, little squares, I wish we had like some better synonyms for these things, because I feel like I'm using the same words over and over again. This is my like English brain going crazy right now. Anyway, each one of these little units takes maybe like 40 seconds. And so as you go, you add 1 square per row. And so it gets a little bit longer every time, but I think it's absolutely beautiful. I don't think this is going to be a shawlette. I think this is going to be a huge shawl, because look how much yarn I still have left. This was a 100-gram skein. This is like featherweight. It literally doesn't feel like anything. It is so soft. It feels like air. Being alpaca, like, it's a really soft fiber, but I just don't feel like it's going to be a shawlette. I think it's going to be huge. So I'm really excited to finish it. I am going to wear it around Egypt. I don't even care. It's very bright, and I am still planning to add the blue beads at the bottom of it. So the video tutorial, and also I'm sure the pattern, but I haven't read that far, it basically shows you that when you are ready to sort of finish, you know, the finishing of this shawl includes like sort of crocheting along each border to make it a nice straight edge. So I am thinking I'll have plenty of opportunity to add my little blue beads along the edges. I had bought those blue beads with this yarn in mind, and so I definitely want to use them together. It's like a really beautiful royal blue glass beads that I picked up in Canada, and it just is going to look stunning. So hopefully this will also be done by the next time you see my podcast. I love it. This just seems like a really unique stitch pattern, and because it's crochet, sort of the front and the back make different looks, and so you're going back and forth in rows, and so every other row is sort of it's the front or the back of the stitch, and so it's just really cool. Crochet is so different from knitting in a lot of ways, but I absolutely love it. And when I find the right pattern, because I definitely think that knitting is prettier than crochet. Sorry if you're a die-hard crocheter. I think crochet is faster, it's fun, it doesn't hurt my hands in the same way that knitting does. There's a lot of benefits to crochet. But knitting, in my opinion, looks smoother, cleaner, nicer. So I just decided to show you the blue beads that I'm planning to use for this project. Blue beads to go with this incredible green yarn. I think they're going to go really well together. So that is for this. Heyo! Okay, so I have been a busy bee these past weeks. I don't remember the last time I podcasted. I've been so busy. Like I mentioned, my parents were in town, my friend from Michigan was in town. I have been out and about. I've been all over Cairo, I've been all over Sharm el-Sheikh, which is another city here in Egypt. It's crazy, but I wanted to show you a couple of acquisitions that I purchased. The first one, I guess, being this bag. I was with my parents, literally just right next to the pyramids. You know, there's people shilling all of their wares and whatnot, but I was like, oh, that's a really nice bag. It's $1 for a nice little canvas bag, some Egyptian, you know, imagery on it, and it broke like almost immediately after I purchased it. It broke like 2 days later. I might salvage it, but I might not, but it was $1 next to the pyramids. I felt like it was a good buy. I could use it as a project bag, and it had all these fun, you know, fun designs on it. I'll definitely buy another one the next time I go to the pyramids. Oh, maybe not though, because actually I didn't even notice that, but look at it ripping at the seam right there. I wouldn't quite call this an acquisition. But what I have inside this bag definitely is. With my friend from Michigan, we went to the el-Khalili Bazaar, which is basically a huge, Cairo's largest outdoor market where you can buy, especially these things, but you can buy pretty much anything. You can buy jewelry, clothing, knickknacks, like anything you want. It's an open air bazaar. You can really get whatever you want. So we start, you know, going through these little small streets that are just lined with shops and people walking and people selling things, and there's so much to look at. And so for the first like half hour, we're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, you know, look at, we're at this bazaar where it was like this very romantic idea. But after that, we're like, okay, we're in the middle of this bazaar. There's no way to go but forward or backwards. We think we're in the middle of it, so we might as well just go forwards instead of just backtracking to leave. And I was like, you know, I'd really love to find a yarn store. So I start asking around, and I start asking some of the vendors. I'm like, hey, is there a place to buy yarn for knitting? And they're like, yeah, it's on the other side of the street. You know, like, you'll see it, it's on the left. I was like, okay. So I keep going. Another 20 minutes later, I still don't see the street. So I ask another guy, hi, is there a yarn store? And he's like, yeah, it's just on the other side of the street on the left. I'm like, great, thank you. So we keep walking another 10 minutes, and there's still no street. And I finally ask another person, I'm like, look, I've heard that there's this yarn store on the other side of the street, but where is the street? He's like, oh, it's really close, it's right here. Finally, we get to this street, and we cross the street over to the other side of the el-Khalili market, and I don't see this yarn store. So we're looking around, we're asking people, and by this time we're frustrated, we're hungry, we're tired, you know, we're sick of like bumping into people and just like fumbling our way through this market. And so we, you know, just stopped and asked another person. He's like, yes, it's literally right here. So we finally find this yarn store, and it's like, oh, so much yarn. It's a yarn store, but it's an Egyptian yarn store. So there's all sorts of acrylics and whatnot. And so I asked the man, I'm like, hi, do you have any Egyptian cotton? He's like, yes, all of this on this wall are Egyptian cotton. So I pick up some of that. Unfortunately, it's at the bottom of my bag, so I'll pick that up later. But I found this fun skein of yarn. So the Arabic reads Catty. And so when you're trying to spell it in English, I guess you get Kate. So this is a 100-gram skein of yarn. The man told me it was silk. He didn't tell me what percentage of silk, and it does not say on the ball band. You can see some information. It basically says it's 100 grams, it's made in Egypt, and then this part where it says 100% and then it's covered up by the label, I sort of looked underneath it and it says 100% PAC. I don't know this acronym, but PA and C are not silk, so I have no idea. I'm also not sure if it's like PAC is some sort of like shipping agency. I have no clue. But I picked up this beautiful skein of yarn. It's so shiny, and it was only 10 Egyptian pounds, which is about 75 cents for a beautiful skein of purple yarn, possibly with some silk content. So I'm really excited about it. It is like a fingering weight, and I think I'm going to be making some fingerless mitts with these, possibly. This is the one that I'm really excited about. I just love this deep color purple, this violet. Maybe eggplant is a better color, but I just thought that it was so cute. It has a cat on the front, and it's called Catty, which would mean my cat in Arabic. When you add the E at the end, it means like it's mine. It's a possessive pronoun. So my cat, Catty, or Kate, whatever you want. If you happen to know what 100% PAC means, please let me know in the comments below, because I am clueless, and if it's like something. I've also tried looking this up online, and I could not find anything for it. It's not registered in Ravelry. It's not, I haven't really found a website that sells it with any sort of information, and so I'm in the dark on this, but I picked it up because it's 100 grams of purple yarn. It's a great souvenir for Egypt. Fine. The next one I picked up is this bad boy here. I actually think this is the exact same yarn as this because it sort of has the same chainette style, and the man also told me this is silk. And so he weighed the cone, and I think he told me this is only 200 grams of yarn, but I definitely feel like it's more like 400, because if this is 100 grams, imagine that around this huge cone. Maybe it's like 250 or 300 grams. I'm not sure, but this is just a beautiful gold yarn that he, again, told me was made with silk. Or he said, oh, this is silk yarn. So I don't think it's 100% silk, but you never know. Maybe it is. I just cannot find any information. Of course, I bought a cone with no ball band, nothing like that. But I am thinking this is going to be a gigantic shawl for me. It's really soft. There's no halo. I definitely think it might be like with some acrylic blend, but it's possible that this is silk. I paid only 70 Egyptian pounds for this. I paid 80, I'm sorry. I paid 80 Egyptian pounds for this, which is $5, a little less than $5. It's like $4.50 for a giant cone of possibly some silk yarn. So I was like ecstatic with these prices right here. So I'm really excited to use it and to see sort of where it takes me. Gold is not often my color, but I saw this cone and it just spoke to me. They had other colors of gold that didn't look as natural or as nice. I just thought that this particular gold color was really warm and lovely, and so I just had to buy it. So I did that. Then, of course, as I mentioned, I asked him, where's the Egyptian cotton yarn? And so he points to this wall, and there's all sorts of just long hanks, and they are like in giant bundles, these hanks. And so I pull out this one colorway, and I'm like, hi, like, you know, I want some of this yarn. And mind you, these were all together in a big giant hank, and he just pulled it out of this like rubber band ball. He's like, how much yarn do you want? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe, you know, 500 grams or so, and I'm thinking I can make a sweater's quantity. So he pulls out these hanks and puts them on the scale. And mind you, again, these are, I've reskeined these. These were all one hank, or sort of one, they were all given to me together. And he puts it on the scale, and it's 570 grams of cotton yarn. This is definitely a fingering weight. It might borderline on light fingering. It's quite fine. But I just like this color a lot. It feels really naturally dyed. 100% Egyptian cotton for sure. And I think I'm going to make a really nice cardigan, or maybe like a shirt. I've been thinking about designing. I've got so many designs in my head for shirts and sweaters that I've wanted to design for a long time now. And so maybe this is the yarn that's going to finally push me over the edge to design this one that I've been thinking about for years, and I call it the Dragula sweater. And I want it to be sort of a sexy, like altered V-neck so that it goes like, you know, it has sort of this sweetheart neckline that goes in at the bust. I really just have this idea for like a sexier neckline, not just a standard V or, you know, a crew neck or anything. I really want like a sort of like a heart-shaped neckline. If you've ever seen the Moyen Age, it's like a shell or whatever they call it. It's a sweater on Ravelry, but I really like sort of the design. Hers is more like a bustier look. I want sort of a modified one like that. So anyway, I've been thinking about this and designing it for 2 years now, ever since we left San Diego. And I think this might be the yarn to finally give it to me. I do have 570 yards of fingering weight cotton, so I assume that it's going to be roughly like 350 to 400 yards in a skein of this. I'm not sure, but it's going to be a short sleeve shirt, or maybe 3/4 if I can get it. But I'm going to definitely be doing something with this. The yarn store had a lot of, like I said, acrylic. I don't think they sold any wool. I didn't ask him for wool because I was not, I'm looking for Egyptian cotton. I really want something that's going to be a great souvenir. And so I do think that these 4 skeins are wonderful. So I have 570 grams total of this yarn, which I think is plenty. That's almost 6 skeins of fingering weight, like 100 grams, right? Like, I think that's fine. I've made sweaters out of 350 grams of fingering weight wool yarn. So I definitely think 570 grams of cotton is gonna be fine. More than enough for me. If not, maybe I'll improvise, but I will definitely be able to get a short sleeve something out of this. And so we'll see how those 3/4 length sleeves that I have in my mind work. Good. Okay. That is it for the knitting content and my yarn acquisitions. If you would like to stick around, I'm going to talk now a little bit about my vacation with my parents. And then at the very end, I'll show just a little 5.5-minute video it's a compilation of video and pictures from our sort of vacation together, which was really fun. So We bought it in pink. So, as I mentioned, my parents came for a 7-day vacation visit here in Egypt. My dad has always been interested in ancient Egypt, and so I knew that he would be really excited about seeing the pyramids, going to the Egyptian Museum, and sort of making that the focus of his time in Cairo. My mom, on the other hand, is very much a beach goer, and so I was like, okay, 3 days in Cairo and then 3 days at Sharm el-Sheikh, which is a beach resort city in the Sinai Desert in Egypt. And so I was like, perfect, we'll hit what my dad wants, we'll hit what my mom wants, it is going to be great. So we started off in Cairo, and that was, I think, the highlight of their visit. We picked them up from the airport and we took them to the Marriott Hotel. The first night, like, I don't know how they got a second wind, but we like went to this restaurant and we ate like all the hummus and tabbouleh and like had appetizers and a couple beers, and it was just a really nice way to start off the week. Then the first day that they were here, the first full day, I had planned sort of an easygoing day of, you know, just walking around my neighborhood, maybe going out to lunch and dinner, have a sort of easier day because I figured they would be jet lagged. The night before, i.e. the night I picked up my parents, I get home and my bathroom is flooded. And basically I had to call a plumber to come in the next day early, but Egypt time is late, and so I called him at like 11. He didn't show up until 4:30. So literally from like 10:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon, my parents and I were just stuck at my house doing absolutely nothing, waiting for this plumber, because he's like, oh, I'm on my way. Oh, I'll be there soon. Oh, I'm, you know, like 15 minutes away. He finally shows up at 4:30 after telling us at 11 that I'd be there within an hour. So we're thinking, oh, we'll have plenty of time to go out to lunch and everything. Nope. Long story short, I don't want to talk about the plumber too much, but we ended up, you know, finally having a bit of time to walk around the Nile and sort of see a little bit of my neighborhood, but not as much as I would have loved to show them. And then that first night we went on a dinner cruise, which included like a belly dancing show and a whirling dervish, which in Arabic is called the tanura. It's like a Sufi dancer who basically spins around with this huge skirt that just, it flows up. Oh, I'm gonna put in, it's all in the video. And if you follow me on Instagram, you have seen something like this video where it's basically this huge skirt that, you know, a male would dance around in and just spin in circles as sort of this like religious ceremony. On the cruise ship, the dinner cruise, it was definitely just for the tourists. It was not at all a religious dance by any means, but it was still really cool to see. So the second day, we of course went to the pyramids, and this was amazing because I don't know if you're aware, there are way more than just the 3 pyramids at Giza that you've probably seen on all those ancient alien shows. There are pyramids all over Egypt. There are over 100 pyramids in Egypt. Some of them are in rubble, like have totally been destroyed by time. Some of them definitely still stand strong, like the pyramids at Giza. There's another couple of pyramid complexes that are ancient, older than the pyramids at Giza, and they've survived. And so we started off at Saqqara, which is a whole tomb site where there are, there's like tombs, and this is the step pyramid of Saqqara. There's temples, there's all sorts of these amazing histories. And so we actually got to go inside of a pyramid in here. But this pyramid that we went inside of, it looks like a mound of rubble on the top of, you know, when you're just looking at it from the outside. But you go in and there are like walls lined with hieroglyphs, and the ceiling is lined with stars etched into the stone. Not only that, but the way they've carved this, if you throw a light source on the side of the wall, they have the wall covered in hieroglyphs, but there's actually a relief of the image, or the sort of the silhouette of the pharaoh etched into the stone. And so you can only see it if you have a light source on one side, and it's like this, the image of like a pharaoh like with a spear. It's incredible. Like, you can't even imagine the detail that was put into these tombs and the detail that was put into these carvings and these sarcophagus. It was insane. And so I had been in this pyramid before. My parents, this was their first time, of course, and it was so, so cool. And there's like chambers. Anyway, it was really amazing. It was really amazing. So after Saqqara, we went to the Bent Pyramid, which is the Pyramid of Dahshur, we went to the Bent Pyramid site, which is also the site of the Red Pyramid, which looks like a traditional pyramid, but the stones are heavy with mercury, I think it is, or heavy with iron, I'm sorry. The stones that they used are heavy with iron, and so it turned red over time, and so it's called the Red Pyramid. Then after that, we went to the Great Pyramid site at Giza, the Giza Plateau, and we ended up riding camels next to the pyramids. And it sounds so touristy, it is so touristy, but it's really fun. Like, you have to try it. And the people who are there, this is their business, you know, they own these camels and they allow you to ride them for a fee, and it is like totally expected. And so my dad gets up on the camel, fine. I get up on the camel, fine. You're 10 feet in the air, right? So my mom goes to get up on the camel and she sort of like freaks out. And so she starts like screaming a little bit, which scares the camel, which scares her. She ended up getting off the camel and not being able to sort of do the camel ride with us, but it was totally fine. My dad and I went on a little camel ride into the distance where you can take some better pictures of all the pyramids. It's just incredible. It was so much fun riding a camel with my dad and seeing all the pyramids again. I tried to recreate some pictures that I had, you know, taken, gosh, 8 years ago was the first time I had ever come to Egypt. I tried to recreate some of those pictures. It was just really fun. The nicest thing is that the last time I was here for vacation was in 2014. And this was, I think, right after like a plane crash in the Sinai, like it was a Russian plane that crashed in the Sinai. Of course, in 2011, this was like the Arab Spring that happened in a lot of the Middle East, and Egypt definitely had a revolution. So tourism was tanked. So in 2014, my husband and I came for a vacation, and there was like nobody. We had the pyramid complex to ourselves. There were very few tourists. But this time around, here in 2018, it was like completely different. There were thousands of people who are going inside the pyramids and who are visiting these sites and riding camels. It was like they had totally revived their tourism industry, and it was really, really great to see. So that was our day at the pyramids. The next day we went to the Egyptian Museum and the Salah ad-Din Mosque, Citadel, I'm sorry. There's a citadel, which is like a fortress in like old Cairo, and then inside the citadel there are several mosques, and we went inside the Muhammad Ali Alabaster Mosque, made of alabaster stone. It's just a really beautiful mosque. It's not really a functioning mosque right now. It's more like a tourist destination. So people who are interested to see like old Cairo, usually it's a combined tour where there's like old Islamic Cairo and old Christian Cairo, because there are some really beautiful churches as well. They actually have synagogues. Like Egypt historically has been a very diverse region of the Middle East, and so there's a lot to see. My parents, I really wanted them to see a mosque because I don't think they had ever really explored Islamic culture at all. And so it was a beautiful place to start. There's a gorgeous view of Cairo and Giza from outside of this like sort of plateau. It's actually the highest point in Cairo is where we went. But this mosque is gorgeous. The view from there is absolutely beautiful. And it's just a really nice way to sort of wind down. After we did that, we were really tired, and so we just like called it quits for the day, because the day before we were in the pyramids and it was hot and sunny, and you don't realize how much the sun will wind you or will like completely wear you down. So we were tired, we quit for the day. The next day we went to Sharm el-Sheikh, which like I mentioned was supposed to be this beach resort. It ended up not being quite up to our expectations. We stayed at like the Marriott Hotel, which was a beautiful hotel, but because tourism had fallen over the years, and especially in Sharm el-Sheikh, they sort of haven't been able to upkeep the hotels as much as they could have. And like, for example, all of the pools were unheated. And it's April, which sounds like it's, you know, oh, hot in Egypt, but the water was really cold. And so we actually preferred being on the water in the ocean, because we were on the Red Sea. And so the ocean was beautiful, the beaches were great, but it was sort of not exactly the super relaxing time we wanted. The first day we were there, I had planned like a desert excursion where we were going to go like four-wheeling in the desert as like a safari at sunset. And so that was really, really fun. My mom was sick from sort of just eating like raw vegetables, which you can't really do in Egypt, unfortunately. And so she ended up having to miss out on that. But my dad, Paul, my husband, and I, we all went out to this desert safari where you ride four-wheelers in the desert. It's super cool, and like you go in these convoys of like 10 four-wheelers at a time, and so you're sort of single file behind a guide, and you get to see the sunset in the desert, and like there are these gorgeous, jagged, craggy mountains that you're looking at this whole time, and it's just beautiful. In the pictures you're going to see, we're all wearing sort of like a mask around our face and like our heads. That's definitely to protect against like the dust and the exhaust and like just all the sort of crap that flies up at you when you're in the desert riding a four-wheeler. But it was really fun to just like get out in the desert and like go a little bit wild because, like, you know, it was fun. It was something I never expected to do there. We also had planned a tour to go snorkeling, but because of rough water, that was canceled. It was just like it was a highs and lows in Sharm el-Sheikh. After we spent a couple days there, we came back to Cairo for just the day before my parents had to leave that same night to go back home to the USA. And it was just a really nice visit. And I had lived with my parents for about 5 months in Michigan before coming to Egypt, just out of necessity. We were waiting for this scholarship to come through. If you've watched my older episodes, you know the saga. We were sort of like waiting. We expected to be with them for about 1.5 to 2 months, and it turned into like a 5.5 month stretch. So our relationship was a little bit strained, needless to say. My relationship with my parents was a bit strained. But this was a really good way to reset that and to sort of like have fun with them again, because like they're fun people, we are super fun people. We're in a foreign country, we're all on vacation together. It was like really what we needed to sort of have a good time again. So it was fun. I'm going to put in a video here, in which case I'm going to also sign off because I'm just going to end with the video of our vacation. I hope that I haven't rambled on too long or, you know, killed all your time, but thanks for listening. Thanks for watching with me. Again, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Meg311yo. Please do follow me on Instagram. If you're interested in my Egypt visit and everything, that's where I post most of my pictures and videos and sort of these fun little tidbits as they happen. And so that's the best way to keep in touch with me. Of course, Ravelry, if you've got any questions about what I'm knitting, you know, any questions about patterns, etc., you can always, you know, drop me a private message on Ravelry as well. And of course that group in Ravelry, but I'm not so active in that. I've sort of got a lot of things going on, and especially in Egypt, there's no way for me to really host a cal or host a giveaway, things like this. So until I get back to the US, this is really just a private knitting channel where I show you what I'm up to and what I'm knitting. So I hope that's okay. There are a ton of awesome podcasts out there with knit-alongs, with giveaways and different ways that you can sort of interact more with them. Unfortunately, I'm not really in a great place to do that with you guys, unfortunately. That's it for me. After this whole long soliloquy, that's it for me, but thank you so much for watching.